What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 7 of building a clone base. If you guys caught last week's update, we actually built up this wall, got a staircase built onto it, and put some pillars in the front just to give it some depth and get it looking nice. Now, this week I want to shift focus a little bit and go back to some terrain work because I've neglected this area here where the path is supposed to cascade down the slope. So we got to work on that, and then I want to work on the farm, which is going to be my main goal this week. So luckily last week I was actually able to pick up 2 boxes of green brick off the pad wall at the Lego store, and I hope that's going to be enough to do what I want to do with this slope. First of all, I just need to make it less steep, and hopefully that's going to be good enough because I want to save the rest of my brick for the farm. I'm going to be bringing the farm up a brick or two, so that is sort of what I wanted. Now I can go through and add that cascading path finally. But yeah, this is just a look at how much brick I have left, and I want to cover this area here where the farm's going to be. So after I got that initial brick laid down, I can go over with all these medium nougat and dark tan pieces, just covering everything up. And I ran into an issue that you'll see I'm going to easily fix. But first of all, on top it looks good and it looks how the path should be, but when you come to the side, it's got all that underlaying green brick sort of peeking through on the side. So all I got to do is build it up. Would have been nice to have some dark tan brick maybe that I could have laid underneath, but I have a ton of these 1x2 plates and everything, so I'm just going to throw a bunch at it until all those green specks are covered up. So after getting all that underlying green brick covered up, the path is pretty much going to be complete, and we're just going to carry it on past the farm and to the farm. But that's a look at that, and you got to remember it's just a base layer, especially that green brick. It's going to be covered up in trees and botanical pieces, and I'm going to fill all that in to the best of my ability with the parts that I have. So this is just a look at the before, and then this is a look at the after. Quite a few parts put on there. I think it's looking really nice. And of course, later on in the video, I'm going to be extending that road all the way to the right here, and then also towards the farm. I've been thinking a lot about how I want to do this farm and how big I want it to be. And the first thing I want to do is just use the remainder of our green brick to build a outline of where the farm is going to be, and that's just going to give us a template of how much space I want to use up for the farm. So I went ahead and did a border, and then we covered it all up in a bunch of green plate, and then you can see where the crops are going to go in. The different crops, we put some brown plate and some botanical pieces, and I think that's already looking really cool. You can imagine what it's going to look like with crops and then a farmhouse in this corner eventually, because I want this whole area with the farm to be a big Easter egg for Cut Lawquanes' story arc from the Clone Wars TV series. And that's going to mean that the interior of the farmhouse has got to be detailed pretty well. And that's going to be something I figure out in later weeks, because right now we got to focus on getting these crops in. And the first thing I want to do is use a bunch of these parts, these pink flower pieces. I had a ton of them from a past build. And all I'm going to do is put a little Technic black pin through the middle, thread it through a few of them, and then top it with a trans red stud. As for the other crop, we're going pretty simple with 3 stud flowers on one of these grass pieces, and I'm going to be stacking them up to make bushels afterwards. But first I want to do these pink flowers, and I was actually really happy that I had a bunch of these black pins in different heights, so we get some height variation of this crop, and I think these look awesome. Like the Star Wars-esque vibe of those is really why I loved having these pieces, and being able to reuse them in another mock it's always a good feeling. So we got those built, and then we also got all these little bushels built up. Some of those are pretty part intensive. I think some of them had 12 pieces on just one little bushel, so definitely some good part usage there. And then of course I want the flowers and the dirt, and then we're going to be putting that pink flower crop onto the botanical limb pieces, and then that is a look at the finished crop. I think it looks awesome. I mean, especially those pink flowers, it just looks like something that actually be on a farm in Star Wars, and that's exactly what I was going for. And I think these look cool as well, and we got the nice little path cutting through the crop, because that's going to be their way to the water. I thought that was the most practical way to do that. So here is a look at my custom Cut Lawquane. I do want to give him a receding hairline piece if I can find one down the line, and then of course Ayla Secura is going to be his wife. We're just substituting her in. But basically, as a recap, Cut Lawquane is a clone deserter. He left the Army of the Republic to seek out a simple life as a farmer. He ended up marrying this Twi'lek, and they had kids. And during this story arc in the Clone Wars TV series, Captain Rex happens to stumble upon their farm, and then during that story arc they end up having to defend the farm from a bunch of commando droids. So I want to tell that story here on the farm, and we're going to have some creative liberty with doing that, but that's something to talk about in later weeks once we actually build the farmhouse. But I'm really happy with the outcome of the crops so far, and then now I want to just get onto a few other things like the path. Now, once again, just carrying on that very basic design for the path, and this is probably going to be the last of the path that we're doing this way, other than a little finishing touches here and there, because in the city and the base area, I want to do a cobblestone design for the roadways, which I'll show you guys in a bit. But here's one last look at the farm area with the path that's going to run up. Then they have a little access point to the water there as well, and then here's a little look at the other side. So I think it's blended in very nicely, and I'm happy with the outcome of that. Lastly, a little before and after picture. That's how it looked before. After a few hours of work, this is how it looks after. I really like the transformation, and I'm happy with that. I also want to thank all of you who commented and left tips on how I should do the tops of the pillars here. And a lot of you were saying to use the dark ingot, and then I actually ended up using just one dark ingot in the middle and then two little yellow studs as some lights. And I actually got this idea from this commenter here. I just want to thank all you guys for all of those wonderful suggestions and everything. I really appreciate it, and it helps shape these builds to what they end up looking like. While I was over here, I also decided to just go ahead and put on those grill pieces on the top of the red slopes just to clean up a little bit. And then of course, once I get a parts haul in of those tiles, I'm going to go ahead and tile off all that area where the clothings are standing on. Then next week, I also want to come up with a design for a couple turbo lasers, which are going to sit on those open studs there on each side. Another project for next week is going to be figuring out this area at the entrance of the city and the base. Basically what I need to do is tile off underneath where the bridge is sitting, and then I can carry on that dirt road, and then I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to mix that and mesh it into the cobblestone in the city. And the way I'm going to obtain that look is having all these 1x1 blue tiles. I have quite a few of them. And then I'm going to mix in some dark light gray tile and dark light gray ingots. And this is the general look that I'm going for. This is like my prototype of it. So that's the road, and then I'm going to have light gray sidewalks running all throughout the city. I think that's going to give a nice sophisticated look to this little bit of city that we're going to have. So road building and turbo lasers aside, I think next week it's finally time we get started on the base itself. It's going to be the focal point of this whole mock project, so I really want to do it some justice, and I think I'm finally ready to tackle it and at least get the first floor in. But overall, it was another really good week of progress. I'm really happy with how the farm is looking and shaping up. We finally got that path figured out, and it cascades down nicely. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for us today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Have a good one. Peace.